Good afternoon, everyone. So today we are going to discuss lesson 9, which is analyzing the social desirables in stratification. But before we proceed with our lesson, let us first know the objectives of our lesson for today. First, the learner will examine the concept, characteristics, and forms of stratification systems using sociological perspective. Next, the learner will break the concept of social inequality into its component parts, such as social differentiation, social stratification, and social distributions of wealth, income, power, and status. Lastly, we have the learner will suggest ways to address global inequalities. So, social desirable and stratification. Let us first define social stratification. It divides people into different social classes. A person's wealth or income is one of the determinants of his or her social rank in a stratified system. So, ano nga bang social stratification? Based on some websites, it is the structured inequality of access to rewards, resources, and privileges that are scarce and desirable within a society. Next, it is the inequality of entire categories of people who have different access to social rewards as a result of their status in a social hierarchy. So yan, based on a um, based on a dictionary, social stratification means strata means layer and stratification means layering. In other words, pag sinabi nating social stratification, it is your position or how the social status were divided in a society. So sabi nga dyan, it is the institutional and social processes that define certain types of occupations and goods as a socially desirable. So based kay Max Weber, um, he proposed a theory which is he is a social theorist. Kasabayan niya si Karl Marx and Emil Durkheim, wherein he proposed the theory of social stratification. Pag sinabi nating theory of social stratification, it talks about three concepts rather. So we have the power, property, and prestige. So ano ba yung mga tinutukoy netong tatlong um, terminologies na to? So we have wealth or yung tinatawag na property, which is you accumulated which is accumulated economic resources or their economic status. Yung wealth, ito yung yaman ng isang tao or yung nagiging niyang mga properties, money, or uh, properties na meron siya. Next is the power. It is the ability to achieve one's goals even against the will of others. So, especially, yung power, ito yung nagagamit ng isang tao para makuha yung gusto niya or magawa yung mga dapat niyang gawin. For example, sa political status, 'di ba aminin man natin sa hindi, kung ikaw ay makapangyarihan in our society, especially kung ikaw ay nasa political position or certain position in the society, mas nabibigyan ka ng priority or mas nabibigyan ka ng pansin. That is a power. Next is prestige. Pag sinabi naman nating prestige, the administration that a society confers people or their social status. So kung kilala ka sa lipunan, mas mabilis kang maaaksyonan or matutulungan within a society. So pag sinabi nating prestige, it is defined as a widespread respect or admiration of acclaim. For example, um, it is a power that you get when you get elected. Halimbawa, na-elect ka as a mayor. So, you have another authority as an individual or as a highly positioned person in a society. So, let's go with social class differences. So, may iba tayong role or class in our society. First is, of course, the wealth. So pag sinabi nating wealth nga, it is accumulated economic resources or their economic status. Sabi nga nila, pag may pera ka, mas makapangyarihan ka, or kung may pera ka, or mas marami kang properties, mas marami kang yaman, mas mabilis yung process or mas mabilis yung process para sa'yo or mas mabilis mo makukuha yung gusto mo. Yun yung definition nila ng wealth nowadays. So, money is very powerful, ika nga nila. Next is through gender. So yan, nagkakaroon tayo ng differences sa social class in terms of gender. Dati ang gender natin is male and female lang. So babae, lalaki. But as the time goes by, nagkaroon tayo ng mga gays, lesbians, which is called LGBT. So yan, yun yung community na meron sila nowadays. So regardless naman ng gender natin, we are still people or member of the society. Next is we have differences in terms of age. Of course, di naman tayo pare-parehas ng edad. We have kung ika nga nila, we have different roles in terms of our ages. For example, 5 to 10. You are not really responsible on working, right? So, yung mga responsible for working is ages, ano na yan, mga 20 and above. So, yan. It must be, ha? Dapat yun yung ideal age para mag-work. But, as the time goes by, may makikita ka dyan, due to poverty, meron ng mga at the age of 10 and above, they're now working to earn money. But ideally, dapat mga nasa 20 and above pa. So, ayan. Kung makikita nyo, may mga age bracket tayo dyan, wherein um, with those ages, they have responsibility based on their ages. And meron silang differences. So, ayan. Not only physically, but also mentally. Next is our differences in terms of physical characteristics. So, meron tayong mga trademark eh. Pag Asians daw, mga singket, yung complexion natin is not that white. So, yung mga face shapes. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng different physical characteristics. And hindi tayo pare-pares ng itsura. Merong, ayan, kung makikita nyo, dito sa ating slide, meron tayo dito, ayan, face shape. So, merong oval, round, it can be square, oblong, heart shape, diamond, or triangular shape of our face. Next, and of course, our eyes. We have different colors of our eyes. We have brown, blue, green, hazel, gray, violet, and the shape of our eyes were sometimes big, small, round, or narrow. I think yung narrow sometimes or most of the time is yung Asians. So, tayo. So, ayan. Next is our hair. We have different uh, shapes or design or what they call this style, rather style of our hair. Meron tayo long, medium, short, bald, or balding. Next is shaved or head. Yung tinatawag. And of course, yung skin complexion natin, meron tayong pale, meron tayong fair, light, tan, dark, brown, and olive na color. So those are the physical characteristics that we have. So how about you? What is your physical characteristics? So yeah, comment down below. Next is we have um, about race, ethnic group, family, or birth name. So, ayan. Minsan, pinanganak na tayo na um, may dark complexion or that is an ascribed tinatawag nila ascribed status, di ba? Kung ano ka nung pinanganak ka. So, yan nga, we have ethnic group, saan ka bang tribo pinanganak? Are you an Aita? Are you uh, a Bajau? Or are you an Igorot rather? So, ayan. And we have family or birth name. Hindi naman tayo makakapili ng ating surname pag pinanganak tayo. So, ay gusto ko yung gusto ko Cruz yung apelyido ko kasi maganda yon. Hindi naman gano'n. So, kung saan ka pamilya na bibilong, just like, um, Duterte, yeah. A very known person in the society because of our President Rodrigo Duterte. So, nagkakaroon din tayo ng social class differences due to our birth name. So, yeah, meron talagang sometimes may mga pangalan na pangalan na kilala na in our industriya or in our society. Next is we have social class differences in terms of intelligence or education. Of course, hindi naman lahat teacher, hindi naman lahat doktor. Sometimes meron tayong mga um, mas nakakaangat sa atin as an individual in the society. Of course, we need to accept the fact na hindi talaga tayo totally pantay-pantay in our society. Merong mas nakakaangat, may nasa baba, may mga nasa laylayan, or may mga nasa middle class. When it comes to intelligence, hindi naman lahat ng tao is ganun katalino. Pero wala naman tayong sinasabi na foul words such as um, yung mga taong walang alam, um, siguro may mga times lang na a certain person doesn't know a thing about that matter. Kaya siguro nasasabihan silang walang alam. And intelligence, when it comes to intelligence, we have, ayun nga, may mga cum laude tayo, summa cum laude, and meron naman just the so-called ordinary people just to graduate lang college, may mga gano'n, eh, just to get the diploma and they are satisfied with that. But meron namang tao na gusto talaga nila na magkaroon ng distinction when they will graduate or may mga tao talagang nangarap na makatapos ng pag-aaral to become a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, a teacher, ano pa ba? An IT, and an accountant, or so on and so forth. So, nagkakaroon din tayo ng social class differences in terms of our education or our intelligence. So, yeah. Next is societies based on levels of social inequality. Based sa feudalism, feudalism has been introduced in the Philippines by the Spaniards during the colonization of the country since 1521. But the term feudalism is came from the 16th century by royal lawyers sa Europe. And that is to describe the decentralized and complex social, political, and economic society out of which the modern state was em- emerging. The term feudalism daw came from the German word "cow," which measures the wealth among the early Germans. So I think, as far as I know, yung cow na tinatawag nila, the more na mas marami kang properties or mas marami kang pinapastol, the more na mas mayaman ka. So, ayan. A term that gave rise to the medieval work. Fifth simply means something of value, was usually land. So, yung mga pagmamayari nila na um, land on their specific community. So, paano nga ba nag-work ang sa feudalism dito sa Pilipinas way back dati? So, the gobernadorcillo is the highest post occupied by a Filipino headed the city or municipality para siyang mayor or governor. Tama ba ako? So, ayan. Then, the next one will be the feudal administrators, which is from the cabeza de barangay or yung mga namamahala within a, di ba sa local government, yung isa pang namamahala, yung mas pababa pa sa kanila. So, abused their special positions of power and exploited the natives or those under their supervision. So, yung feudalism para siyang caste system. So, may mataas, may mababa, may namumuno. Under that specific higher person sa position, may mga galamay pa siya sa baba. So, yun yung nangyayari sa feudalism sa Pilipinas. And also, doon tayo nagkakaroon ng slavery na tinatawag wherein may mga nagtatrabaho sa mga nasa laylayan and nagtatrabaho in that specific area. So, yun po yun. So, ayan. Based kay Bonifacio S. Santos Macaranas, from the book Feudal Work Systems and Poverty, the Philippine Experience, he stated that while recognizing the importance of land reform, the colonial administration adopted a modern land law but ensured through the prerequisites of land titling that it would be almost impossible for small farmers to title their parcels. It was the rich and educated classes who could take advantage of a manipulated land administration systems and manage to have certified titles to their land holdings. So at the end of the United States occupation, the small farmers were in the same condition they were in during the Spanish era. So during naman ng um, American period wherein sinakop nga tayo ng mga Amerikano, you will see na yung mga farmers natin is very kawawa sila because they are not entitled na mabigyan ng attention or recognition that they are the one who harvested those goods. So kasi ang kumbaga ang recognition is nandoon sa mga higher position in the society. So kumbaga nasi-set aside sila. So, hindi sila nabibigyan ng attention even though they are the one who is harvesting our rice, our crops. But sad to say, they are not the one being recognized and they are not giving the benefit of the doubt, which is they don't have, what do you call this one? They don't have benefits na dapat napupunta sa kanila. And that is very unfair. Next is social mobility system. So sa social mobility system, we have two kinds of classes or ng society. We have the first one, which is the open society. So pag sa isang open society, it was divided into five parts, which is the lower class, ito, the working class, lower middle class, upper middle class, and upper class. So sabi dyan, pag sinabi nating lower class, this is the um, people or person in the society which is rely on the government transfers occupy poorly paid jobs. That is an open that is lower class in open society. So ayan. Next, we have working class, which is the blue collar workers with low job security and high risk of poverty. Next, lower middle class is the semi-professionals with an average standard of living, some college education, and upper middle class, which is highly educated, mostly commonly salaried professionals and middle management. And lastly, the upper class, which is the top level executive celebrities, heirs, and politicians. So, I think naintindihan nyo naman yan, yung ating pyramid of open society. But if you will ask me, ano po ba yung isang open society? Pag sinabi nating open society, you are given the opportunity to change your class or your status in the society. For example, nasa lower class ka, but there was given a time that you have your scholarship. Pwede kang mapunta sa working class, pwedeng sa middle class, pwede ka rin maging upper, or kung mas papala rin, pwede kang nasa upper class. So, pwede kang mapunta sa upper class. So, that is an open society. So, sabi nga dyan, in an open society, people can move from one social class into another based on their efforts and achievements. So, kung gaano ka kasipag, gaano ka determined sa buhay mo na para umunlad. So, that is an open society. You have the benefit na mabago yung iyong status sa buhay. We have the closed society. So, as you will notice, meron dito sa top, which is the Brahmins. This is based on the Hindu caste system. We have here Brahmins, people closest to God. Next to is the Kshatriyas. Correct me if I'm wrong with the pronunciation. The warrior class. We have the Vaishyas, the business class, and the Shudras, or the lowest class of farmers and those who served the other classes. So sabi dito, isang closed society, a society is considered closed when changes or shifts in social position or social mobility are limited. And in some times or some societies, they are prohibited. So for example, itong society na to, um, for example ito na nasa baba, yung mga Shudras or the lower class, they are not allowed to go sa higher position. So kung nasan ka man, dun ka lang. Siguro there are sort of people na pwede kang bumaba. Pero um, siguro or based on the meaning of closed society, you are not allowed to change your status kapag nasa isang closed society ka. Sabi nga dyan, in a closed society, prevailing cultural norms laid down through laws, both secular and religious, prohibits a person from moving upward on a social ladder. So in some societies, laws governing mobilization are codified and considered as convention null standards. Any violation to such norms is punishable by death. So you are not allowed to change your status, even though you are exerting effort, too much effort to change your status, you will not able to change it. So what is the difference between the two? Between the open society and closed society. So sa open, yun nga, you have the privilege to change your status, and um, while closed society, you are not allowed to change your status even you work hard for it. So the Filipino class system. Sa Filipino class system naman, sa ating, in our society, we are, in my own opinion and based on my researches, we are in an open type of society. Why? For example, me, I am just a mere student way back, from 2009 or 2000 something, 2004 up to 2018, until such time I changed my status into a teacher. So, or social role ko, naging teacher. Dati estudyante lang ako, ngayon teacher na ako. So, that is an example of open class society. So, just like what we have here in the Philippines. So, ano nga ba yung Filipino class system dito sa Pilipinas? Of course, meron din tayong lower, middle, and upper. Sino nga ba yung mga nasa lower natin? Sila yung kadalasan mga farmers, kasi they are not um, earning too much money sa pagsasaka, and meron, that is an example based on the based on an article that I have read. And consider din dun yung mga pulube or yung mga nasa laylayan na tinatawag. Well, yung sa middle naman, ito yung mga working. Ito yung mga teachers, mga call center agents, and ano pa ba? Mga small-time business owners, mga doctors, yung mga paid jobs na tinatawag. And sa upper naman, ito yung mga politicians, mga business tycoons, mga businessman, businesswoman in our society. That is how Filipino class system works. So sometimes, yun nga, we have different rules in our society. Kung hindi mo man ramdam ngayon, malay mo sa mga susunod na araw, maramdaman mo na kung na isa tayong open class society. Next, we have types of social mobility. Pag sinabi nating social mobility, it can take different forms and people can experience different types of mobility in different stages of their lives. The types of mobilities are independent of one another and can often overlap. And they are only distinguished for the purpose of analysis. Ayan. We have horizontal mobility, vertical mobility, upward mobility, downward mobility, intergenerational mobility, and intragenerational mobility. So what is the purpose of these mobilities? So let's go back with horizontal mobility. So horizontal mobilities, it can occur when a person changes their occupation, but their overall social standings remains unchanged. For example, yung mga doctor, they are practicing medicine to teach in a medical school. The occupation change, but their prestige and social standing likely remain the same. So, Sorkin describes horizontal mobility as a change in religious, territorial, political, or other horizontal shifts with no change in the vertical position. So, pag sinabi natin horizontal, nare-remain mo pa rin yung um, standing mo, but nag-iiba ka ng occupation. Halimbawa ako, teacher. Teacher ako. So, teacher ako sa isang private school, but for example lang to but as the time goes by, parang gusto kong maging entrepreneur. So, nagtitinda ako or nagtayo ako ng isang business. But I am still a teacher by profession. So, that is horizontal mobility. Next, we have vertical mobility. Pag sinabi natin vertical mobility, this refers to change in the occupational, political, or religious status of a person that causes a change in their societal position. An individual moves from one social stratum to another. So vertical mobility can be ascending or descending, pataas or pababa. So pag sinabi nating ascending, it involves an individual moving from a group of a lower stratum to a higher one, to one or the creation of similar group with a higher societal position instead of side by side with its existing group. So pag sinabi naman natin descending mobility occurs, for example, when a businessman incurs losses in his business and is forced to declare bankruptcy, resulting in a move to um, lower stratum of society. Pag sinabi natin vertical mobility, ay nga, from taas, pwede kang bumaba, or from baba, pwede kang tumaas. For example, um, you are an ordinary person in the society. Nagtitinda ka, small-time vendor ka sa sidewalk. But as the time goes by, nagsikap ka and tumataya ka ng loto, then nanalo ka. So, saan ka na magiging bilong? So, nagkaroon ka na ng pera, nagkaroon ka na ng panibagong status, magiging mayaman ka na. So, umangat ka. That is vertical mobility. From bottom to top. Pag sinabi naman nating descending when it comes to vertical mobility, mayaman ka dati, nalugi yung negosyo mo, nag-declare ka ng bankruptcy, yun, punta ka sa baba. That is what you called descending mobility under vertical mobility. Get? Ayan. Next, we have upward mobility. Pag sinabi naman nating upward mobility, that is when a person moves from a lower position in society to a higher one. It can also include people occupying higher positions in the same societal group. However, upward mobility, while seen as a good thing, can also come at a cost for individuals. So, when a person moves upward, they often need to leave behind familiar surroundings such as family and places. They may also need to change their way of thinking and behavior. The individual will need to adapt to the new environment as a result of their upward movement and adopt different behaviors in the society. For example, upward, simula sa lower position, pataas. Ayun nga, halimbawa, nanalo ka sa loto, then nagtayo ka ng business mo, lumago-lago yung mga business mo. Of course, hindi naman pwedeng makikipag-usap ka with the business tycoons na ikaw ay parang gumagamit ng salitang balbal. So, you are not allowed to speak on that specific kind of language. Hindi naman pwedeng babatiin mo yung mga ka-business owners mo or yung mga kasosyo mo na, "Hoy, kamusta na dude?" Hindi naman pwedeng gano'n. You need to be formal. Kasi they are the members of upper class. And of course, you are also a member of upper class in the society. So, kailangan mong baguhin yung attitudes mo, the way you talk, the way you kasi naman uh, when it comes to communication, we have different types of communication eh, depending on the person that we are talking to. Kung kausap mo ay kasing edad mo at tropa mo, you can use the words that you wanted or yung mga salitang balbal. But for example, teacher yung kausap mo, you need to use respectful words, 'di ba? Hindi naman pwedeng, "Hoy ma'am, kamusta ka na diyan? Anong ginagawa mo diyan?" Hindi naman pwedeng gano'n. So, dapat hindi gano'n. Next, naintindihan po ba yung upward mobility? Next is downward mobility. When we say downward mobility takes place when a person from a higher position in the society to a lower one. So, sinasabi natin yung downward mobility, um, siguro, 'pag nagpapalit siya ng social status, dati siyang mayaman, naging, dahil magastos siya or palasugal siya, palakasino siya, na-bankrupt yung kanyang business, puwede siyang bumaba or um, downward mobility can be extremely stressful for other people who face a rapid changes or decline in their social status. Kung nasanay silang mayaman and bumaba sila into lower status, syempre napakahirap nun. Parang deep inside, sa deep inside nila parang nakakahiya kasi wala na silang pera, hindi katulad dati, or hindi na sila katulad ng social status nila dati. So they may find it hard to adapt to the new environment as it is not familiar to them and also their standards of living. So downward mobility is an example of extent to which a society values equal opportunity and structure, which is wala tayo nun. So pag mahirap ka, kaya ka nilang lampasuhin. And kung mayaman sila, kaya nilang gawin yung mga gusto nila. Unlike us, hindi natin magawa yung totally gusto natin due to lack of income or budget. So, ayan. Ma'am, ano po yung pinagkaiba ng vertical mobility sa upward and downward? Vertical mobility, pwede kang bumalik-balik. From higher to lower, um, ascending to descending, descending to ascending, and vice versa. But upward mobility, pataas ka lang. Pag downward mobility, pababa ka lang. So, next, we have intergenerational mobility. Pag sinabi natin intergenerational mobility, it happens when the social position changes from one generation to another. So the change can be upward or downward. For example, your father worked in a factory while his son received an education that allowed him to become a lawyer or a doctor. So hindi porket yung father mo or yung parents mo is magsasaka, is dapat magsasaka ka na rin. Hindi ganon. So you have the opportunity to change your status. From magsasaka yung pamilya mo, kaya lang magsasaka yung pamilya mo, pwede kang umunlad sa sarili mo as an individual. Pwede kang maging lawyer, doctor, teacher, um, accountant, or kung ano man yung gusto mo. So such societal change also causes the generation to adopt on a new way of living and thinking. So pag sinabi natin intergenerational mobility, it is affected by the differences in the parents and their offsprings, upbringing, changes in population, and changes in occupation. So, ayan. Pag intergenerational, hindi porket yun nga, magsasaka or um, vendor yung parents mo is ganun ka na rin. So you have the opportunity to change yourself. Next is intragenerational mobility. Pag sinabi nating intragenerational mobility, this is a change in societal position occurs during the lifespan of a single generation. So it can also refer to change in societal position between siblings. One way is when a person climbs up to the corporate ladder in their career. For example, individual starts their career as a clerk and through their life moves to a senior position such as a director, and one sibling may also achieve a higher position in the society than their brother or sister. So, pag sinabi natin intragenerational, hindi porket director yung kapatid mo is magiging director ka agad. Hindi pwedeng ganon. You need to come from the lower role up to the upper role. So, pwede mong maangatan yung kapatid mo, pwede mo namang, pwede kang mahigitan ng kapatid mo. So, that is intragenerational mobility works. So, social mobility, sabi nga nila, it is the process by which people change their status within a community. Pag sinabi natin social mobility, you are free to change your status um, depend on your strategy or your determination. So, can someone change their status or role in the society? What do you think? But for me, yes. My answer is yes. Yes, they can change their status or role in the society. Just like me. Sabi ko nga kanina, dati, bata lang ako, then naging estudyante, up until naging teacher. So, nag-change yung role ko or status in the society. And that is one of the living proof that you can also change your status or role in the society. One of the best example also for that is Senator Manny Pacquiao. So we all know that he is a small time boxer dati and he didn't earn that much. And as the time goes by, nakilala siya bilang isang great boxer and he earned something from it until thousands, millions na yung nagkaroon siya ng pera and na-change siya na yung societal position niya from lower position to upper class in the society. Next is, does it matter what kind of society does a person live in? Why not? Kayo, do you think it matters what kind of society does a person live in? What do you think? So that will be your one of your activity. So comment down your answer if does it matter what kind of society does a person live in? Why or why not? I want to hear your opinions. So yan. After you answer that, let's move on with meritocracy. So pag sinabi natin meritocracy, it is a political system in which um, political power are vested in an individual. So binibigay sa'yo as a merit, ika nga nila, di ba? Merit. Merit yung tawag nila. Yung binibigay sa'yo or vininvest, um, vested in an individual that um, has an achievement in the society. So, kumbaga para siyang token para sa'yo. So, magkakaroon ka ng sarili mong distinction. That is meritocracy. So, factors that affects the social mobility and status. Una is land ownership. So, of course, kung mas marami kang pagmamay-ari na lupa, there will be a chance na mas tataas yung status mo sa ating society. 'Di ba that's why some of the people are fond of buying land or properties kahit di naman nila natitirahan because that will be their assets na tinatawag. Next is political dynasty. So, ayan. Political dynasty is, for example, ang mayor is si mayor, si vice mayor, si konsehal is mga kamag-anak nyo. That is political dynasty. Kumbaga sa inyo lang pamilya nyo or angkan nyo umiikot yung politika. That is also affects the social status in the society. Next is education. Siyempre, kung you are uh, a graduate of a certain degree, magkakaroon or may chance ka na mapalitan yung social status mo sa lipunan. And of course, your achievements. Yeah. That is the four factors that affects the social mobility. Tandaan, land ownership, political dynasty, education, and achievements. System of stratification. We have slavery, estate system, caste system, class system, and classless society. That's the system of stratification. So ano nga ulit yung stratification? So those are the different system of stratification. Hindi naman siya really that important, but that just give me give you a little bit background about system of stratification such as slavery. We all know pag slavery, ito yung mga nasa lower class ng system wherein they are being punished or sila yung mga utusan. Sometimes, most of the time, most of the time, hindi sila nababayaran. Estate system, we have this, yung pa rin, just like caste system, meron tayong lower, middle, and upper class in the society wherein you are not allowed to change your position within a society. So yan, class system and classless. Pag classless society, walang sinusunod yan. So walang mahirap, walang mayaman. They are all the same. Pag class system, they are following a certain rule. Kung ikaw ay magsasaka, ikaw ang member ng lower class society. Kung ikaw ay blue collar working person or an individual in the society, you are in the in the middle class society. Next is social inequalities. It refers to the unequal access to social, political, and symbolic capital of individuals in the society. So, inequalities, pag sinabi natin social inequalities, ito yung pagkakaiba ng ating roles o meron tong disadvantages in our society. Halimbawa, gender inequality. So, social inequality based on sex and gender. So, nagkakaroon tayo ng inequality noon when it comes to men and women. Wherein, sabi dati, pag babae ka, kailangan sa bahay ka lang. You are not allowed to study. You are not allowed to go to school. You're not allowed to get your driver's license or whatsoever. Pero, pag lalaki, sila yung, kumbaga, sila yung nag-work. Sila yung nag-finance sa family. Kaya nilang gawin yung mga hard jobs na pagbubuhat or pag-welding, pag-ayos ng bahay. That is inequality based on sex and gender. Next is we have, ayun nga, nowadays, meron na kasi tayong iba't ibang gender. So, meron tayong men, women, yung bisexual, yung mga transgender, lesbian, gay. So, they also earn inequalities in our society. Kasi nga, sabi nila, um, those gays are still men. Why they are using the comfort room of, the transgenders, they are, halimbawa, yung from lalaki to babae, yung mga transgender, wherein, ba't sila mag-CR sa CR ng babae, wherein, um, kumbaga, lalaki naman talaga sila by birth. Nag-gets nyo ba? So, that is one of the inequalities. Wherein kayo ba, payag ba kayo yung mga kapatid nating mga transgender na from boy to girl or girl to boy is gagamit ng CR ng it's either babae or lalaki. It's your own opinion. Next is social inequality based on race and ethnicity. Ito yung pinakauso sa lahat eh. That is what you call racism. Wherein pag dark yung complexion mo, lag ka minubuli. So, yun yun. Usong-uso to sa Amerika. Sa Amerika kasi, they really have an issue about racism. And sa mga Asians, yung kung mapapanood nyo sa mga videos sa Facebook, maraming nagkalat dyan na video about how they criticize or how they bully Asians. So, ayan. Next is social inequality based on disability. So, may mga disadvantages kasi mga disabled person wherein they cannot do some lang naman, some of the things that a normal people can do. Noon yun. Pero ngayon kasi, there are sort of people, even they are disabled, they do um, jobs of the normal person. They are really working hard to do such things. So, pero meron pa rin tayong social inequality. Sometimes, binubuli yung mga disabled person kasi they don't have complete body parts. They cannot talk that much. Or kasi, ang nangyayari, halimbawa, putol yung kamay, paano siya magbubuhat? Parang ganun yung mga iniisip ng mga tao. So, nagkakaroon pa rin tayo ng social inequality based on the disability of a person. Mo, di nakakapagsalita, gustong makipag-communicate, and nilalayo ang nangyayari, nilalayuan na lang sila ng mga tao sa society, which is mali. Dapat, we will still try to communicate with them even though yung mga some parts of it that they are talking about, hindi natin maintindihan. Dapat we also um, take take effort para maintindihan sila. Next is global, or lastly is global inequality. Pag sinabi natin global inequality, ayun nga, pangkalahatan na. So, yung mga mayayaman, sila lang yung naangat lagi, nakakuha ng hustisya even though they don't deserve it. While, ayun nga sabi, top 1% controls 46% of world's wealth. Kumbaga, itong isang tao na to, hindi sapat para sa kanya na makuha lang yung specific property or specific na yaman. Gusto niya mas lalo pa siyang yumaman. 'Di ba? So, ayan, that is global inequality. That is really a problem in our society nowadays. So, yung mga mahirap, mahirap na lang sila. Pinanganak, yung ascribed status na tinatawag, pinanganak silang mahirap, mamamatay silang mahirap. So, ayun yung mga nangyayari sa global inequality. So I hope you understand something with this video. If there are sort of errors or there are some misinformations that were discussed in this video or this pre-recorded video of our lesson, kindly correct me if I'm wrong. And for your post-assessment, you need to create a poster with the theme of societal inequalities. Pinakita ko naman sa inyo kung ano yung mga societal inequalities. And explain, as a Monlimorian, how will you overcome global inequalities in our society? So, example was already given dito sa gilid. Yan. That is an example of a poster wherein, sabi nga dyan, gender inequality is a human fight, not a female fight. So, andyan yung ladder, both sides, male and female. So, ayan. You just need to explain it and answer the question as a Monday Marian, how will you overcome global inequalities in our society? Again, I hope you learned something from this video lesson, and I hope to see you next time for our next lesson, which is the lesson 10, our last lesson. So, God bless, stay safe, and be happy. Thank you so much, Monday Marians.